So the first thing you're going to do is get your new crank block and take the seals off your old one and put them on. There's the first seal, and the second seal is right down in there in the carb, where the carb will go. It's to keep fuel from leaking out, and your motor won't run without it. So first thing you need to do is this little bolt right here. What you need to do is you need to take this off of your old motor, and this basically just secures your carb into place. And you have to put it right in this little hole right here, like so. Alright, now what you're going to do is you're going to take your new crankshaft and you're going to drop it in the engine block through the back, like so. And then get it to line up with the bearings in there to where it just sits there like that, and snap it in with your thumb and it should pop through the other end. Now it should spin freely, and if it doesn't, at least spin like that. You should probably use some nitro clean and clean it up before you put it in. Alright, so the next step is you're going to take your piston and you're going to drop it in here. What you're going to make sure is that this part of the piston is notched out right here. It is facing the back half of your engine towards it's facing rearwards. So go ahead and drop this in. And you need to get this rod here to line up with your crankshaft, and you have to do this at the top of the motor. So like right up there is where you gotta snap it in. Alright, so with that snapped in, all you have to do now is put in your piston sleeve, which isn't too hard of a deal. You take it, and this part that's notched out right here, this little tiny notch right there, that has to be facing the rear half of the engine so that I can snap onto that pin right there. So when you go ahead and drop it in, make sure that notch is on this side and just slowly wiggle it down in there. Should go in there without a whole lot of effort. But now you got to get your piston to line up with the sleeve and push it down in there the rest of the way. Alrighty, so with that lined up with the peg, just make sure you snap it down in there the rest of the way. And now you have your piston and sleeve and crankshaft in your new block. Now the next thing what I would do is I would go ahead and put my back plate on, the back plate back here, which is this part right here. And now there should be a number on the inside of this, and it should say a number 4 right there. Well, it says number 4 on mine. This should be at the bottom, so it's going to be like this on the back of your motor. So it would be like that. And now putting this on, what you gotta do is put it on there, and you gotta twist it so it'll line up with that notch so you can turn your motor over. With this lined up, you can now proceed to put in the 4 screws. Alright, now with the screws loosely screwed in there, you need to turn this rod with your fingers. And if your crankshaft does not move at the front, or if your piston does not go up and down at all, then that means that your rod is not lined up right, and your motor, it won't start because your easy start won't be able to make it run pretty much properly. So make sure you twist this with your fingers, or the front half of the motor, and it turns up and down, and the back half turns with it. You can tell here it is turning, so that is a good sign. Alright, now proceed to tighten down the 4 screws. Alright, now with the 4 screws tightened, you should proceed to put on your engine mount. It should just be sitting like this on the mount, and you need to put in 2 screws on each side, each on the top of the motor. So 1, 2, and 1 and 2 right here. Alright, so I lost 2 of the screws, but I just put 1 on each side like that. And make sure to snug down these screws really nice, but do not over tighten them. I would say just screw it in with your Allen wrench and then give it a nice half turn sideways or so until it feels pretty snug. Alright, next thing you can do is you can put your carburetor on the engine, which basically, this is the simplest part you could possibly do. And you're going to take your carburetor, just like this, right? Make sure the high speed needle, if the motor's facing you, is on the left, and the slide is on the right. and you just kind of drop it down in there. Alright, so now with your carburetor in place, all you have to do is just wiggle it and push it down in there. It should be tight. This little bolt over here, let me get it in light for you. This little bolt right here, you need to tighten that down with the wrench that Traxxas gave you when you bought your truck. Alright, so pretty much just don't over tighten this, just make sure it is nice and snug. And now your motor is almost back together. Now what I would do is I would put the cooling head on. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your cooling head and just drop it on there until all these little notches line up. You're gonna have to spin it, and they should all line up pretty quickly. See, I mean, I already got mine lined up. And then now you're gonna drop your screws down in here and tighten them with your long Allen wrench Traxxas give you. Alright, now with the 5 screws in, what you need to do is you need to snug them down. Do not over tighten them though. You can warp out your block. So the next step you can do is you're going to put your Easy Start on the back of your motor. I'm going to clean mine first though, and then I'm just going to put it in the motor and screw in the 2 screws I have for it. You should have 3 though, but I only have 2. Alright, so now with your screws, the last 3 steps you need to do are put your plastic guard on, put the manifold, header, whatever you want to call it on, and put your clutch on. So first I'm going to do is I'm going to put the plastic ring on. Very, very simple here. You're going to take the ring and it's got this notch in it. This notch pretty much just needs to be at the back of your motor. And you're just going to pop that ring down into place and put in the screws in the top of it. So now with the plastic guard on, go ahead and put on your manifold, whatever it is. All you gotta do is make sure that it is lined up with the bottom right hole and the top left hole and screw it in. Alright, so make sure them 2 screws are snugged, and now the only thing you have left to do is put the clutch on your motor. First start with your nose cone. Without this, your flywheel basically just won't be tight in the motor. Go ahead and push that down with your fingers pretty tight. No big deal there. Grab your flywheel, fly disc. Not exactly sure what it's called, but go ahead and drop it down on there. Next, what you are going to do is grab the little nut that goes over the end of the crankshaft and screw it down with your fingers. Alright, it's tight with my fingers. Now grab, you're going to need a, what is it, a 5/16 nut driver, or a, I think it's an 8mm in other terms. And just go ahead and grab the fly disc and give it like a nice turn until it's tight.